We are here to look at McCord iteration. The second one we shared publicly, but I'd say maybe 4.0, 5.0 at this point. One of the things that you'll notice as we talk McCord Middle School is we were together at our first community meetings back in February-ish. I lost track of that time. And at the time, we were thinking about McCord at 600 students. And so we've adjusted our capacity at McCord to meet a 675 number. That 675 number comes from looking at our enrollment studies that we got from Cooperative Strategies in January, projecting out, and just trying to make sure we have enough seats at that 6th through 8th grade level. So that means we've added a few classrooms to our design since they were first shared publicly. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony Shore from Shore Architects and Mike Dingledine from Community Design Alliance. And they're just going to kind of talk through it, where we are, and then we really just want you to ask any questions that you want to ask tonight, offer as much feedback as you're willing to offer as they kind of talk through where we are.
Thanks, Trent. So the last time we were together, we were at the end of January with our 2 community meetings, and we talked about the concepts of all 4 middle schools, and that was in the programming stage, which is our first stage of our design process. So we have graduated from that. We've submitted our program, which is a bunch of numbers about the number of spaces, square footage. That's been already submitted, and so we've moved into the second stage of design, which is schematic design. And so from there, we've been able to take the concepts and some of the conversations from the community, from the district administration as well, and begin to develop a schematic design. And so we have had, again, district meetings. We've also had conversations with Michael, your principal here, and we have a site design committee for each of the middle schools, and we met with the McCord committee as well, just to get ideas and thoughts again as we are delving into schematic design. So we wanted to come again to the community, which we're doing at each of these first 3 stages at a minimum, and get your feedback. We want to show you guys where we are with the design today, and again, get your feedback. So please ask questions, and if you don't want to, or both, fill this out. There's a form out there. I know you didn't grab one, but there's some out here. Please write anything down. We'll take those back, share them with the district and the school board as well, some of the comments, because we want to reflect as much of that in our designs as we can, because we do want your feedback truly. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he can get into how we are and how we got to where we are and where we are.
Great. So I can't compete with the Blue Jackets, but I can tell you that we've had a really productive week of meetings. We met with the school staff meeting last week. They had a lot of impact on what we knew and what we didn't know. And we met today with students, and they also shared things that I didn't know. In fact, one of the surprising things is they see this edge as an incredible boundary because of traffic to Granby and traffic here. They don't see any of this asset as part of their site. They see themselves kind of stuck. And so that's something we want to think about in terms of how we might change that. We also did our own kind of analysis since January, and we had this kind of list of things we wanted to address, that were opportunities for the expansion, but also things that were opportunities for just improving the existing conditions. So we wanted to acknowledge that there's a lot of green grass around this building. That's something that means there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of options for where we add. It's not so driven. We think that the west boundary is fairly heavy, controlled by the traffic, the sidewalks, the investment in asphalt and concrete. We wanted to create a secure entry at all 4 schools. Secure entry is you enter the building through a door, you are buzzed into a reception area directly. You don't come through a hallway, you don't walk down the hall to the office. You come directly into a professional greeting room, and you are greeted, and you get your new passes like they have today, which are on your smartphones. And so that's something we want to accomplish. We know student dining in this room is not big enough for the current school, let alone any size that we might want to expand. So expanding this and having to do that in a landlocked situation is a challenge we wanted to address. And there's not a lot of natural daylight because we call this kind of school a double loaded corridor, which means the core in the middle, unless there's a clear story or some kind of lighting from above, there lacks daylighting in the school. And the students expressed to us today that that's something they notice and something they'd like to see addressed if possible. So we think we're on the right track. We've slowly gotten there because we've, as Trent said, moved from 600 to 675. So this is our 600 POR that we started with. We're thinking about a 10,000 square foot addition and about 6,000 square foot of reprogrammed space. So not a huge project, but one that had a lot of opportunity to be impactful. So we wanted to address that. We got a complete site survey. Again, knowing what we know about traffic in this edge, what we learned more about is underground utilities and woods and bike paths and cross-country trails and things that are in there that are also assets that we learned about as we've gone through. So again, where we add onto the building isn't as flexible and wide open as we thought, but there's still plenty of opportunity, which you'll see where we've gotten tonight. The one thing we want to try on the outside, and this is not part of the growth project, this is just part of improving that site traffic flow, is that is taking advantage of getting more premium curb space. It's pretty much all buses now. And buses come in at an order, they leave a gap here in the middle, and kids run through that gap with a staff person watching very carefully for traffic, and they come over to the grass side where they try to catch up to parents who are curbed over there. That is not an ideal way to deal with egress from the school. So we think that if we create a little bit wider entrance point here, we can angle buses at the sidewalk, get all the buses into an assigned spot in the first section of curb and sidewalk, allow every bus to come to the same spot every day so kids know where their bus is, and then allow the north part of the parking lot to become more of a parent curb edge, drop-off pickup, and circulation point. It's nice that the school has two big wide openings that are far apart on the street. But again, with the traffic and the buses taking all the premium curb space now, it's not idealized. So I don't think it's a lot of asphalt, I don't think it's a lot of expense, but I think we can massively improve that separation of buses and parents. So as we looked at our first concepts, adding on to the end of the double level of a quarter seemed logical. Although we started and we realized we were getting too close to the road by going too much straight in the southeastern direction. And so we started looking at building off the end in an angle like a boot. It again created some travel distance from the remote end here all the way back to the core of the building. By creating more space for dining, music hits the boot from the stage back here behind us, and it ended up in some of the reprogrammed space on the end of the building. Both decisions were problematic for the staff, putting music so far from the core of the building and remoting classrooms so far from the core of the building seemed challenging. So we right away went to our option B, which was putting that same sort of corridor strategy, but off the core of the building, very close to the center where music is now, finding new music location that was still within reach of the vocal music, putting classrooms out this corridor, which wasn't very far from the core, although we still had this remoteness from the most remote end here, back to the core, and out to this most remote end. And so, but this was the 10,000 square foot addition we were advancing in January when we last saw you. But now we're looking at something a little different. To get to 675, we're almost doubling the size of the addition. We're not changing the reprogramming much. So the project gets bigger, but it gives us opportunities to do more to sort of overcome those problems of remoteness. So at first, we took our original 10,000 square foot plan and we probably added another 8,000 square foot of classroom space and did connect the corridor. We liked that we had this sort of loop effect. So if you're here, you don't have to go to the core to get out here, or if you're here, you don't have to go back to the core to get down here. So we liked that it was looped, but it felt awkward. And this has been the program we've been advancing. We've had it in front of teachers and staff and now students, and all the same things. I feel like this is hell and gone from where I want to be in the building. These are kind of dead-end corridors. The end, they have safety exits at the end, but this doesn't feel like it's really looping, and it doesn't feel like there's a sense that these classrooms are part of this community of classrooms in school. Because not only are you off the circuit, you're out at the end of an additional corridor. So this is the right way to orient classrooms. This is why it kind of happens this way. Today's sustainability strategies, you want classes that face north and south, so you work really hard. But in a building that never knew about those strategies 20, 30 years ago, it's hard to get this to fit. So after the staff meeting last Tuesday, I looked and took some notes and did some sketches and heard people say, why don't we try to repeat some of the looping and some of the strategies that were used in the original building. So that 20,000 square foot, actually 22,000 square foot addition, translating into the site even showed us more problems. So we were getting into the woods a little far, we were getting very close to the property line, we were getting into more utilities, we were getting into a bike path, we were getting into cross-country loops, and so we knew we had to look at some different strategies. So, not being scared of the existing sort of stair-step strategies, and being sort of focused on north-facing walls and south-facing walls, we were able to create and given not regular rectangular shaped classrooms, but they don't exist here now. But we were able to create a much more efficient loop. The hallway is truly just a loop. There are no remote ends, there are no dead ends, there are no courts, cul-de-sacs. There are no places where the corridor doesn't continue to go into a loop pattern. Both the staff and the students have been very positive about this. Questions about, do the odd-shaped classrooms inhibit the way you teach? Do they create problems for you? And for the most part, the answer was no. We just need the space, and we need the numbers of classrooms. And in fact, our biggest challenge, and this was from students today, is that we have full-size classes in undersized spaces because we've run out. And so it's a space issue more than it's a shape issue. There's more work to be done. We have to put casework and furniture in these rooms. These 5 outboard classrooms are all science labs. They're all 1,100 square feet. We're going from 4 science labs that are very odd shaped at the end of the building here to 5 very large, very nice new science labs. We're going to recapture this space as teaching stations for special needs. So again, repurposing the weaknesses of the science, getting the loop effect to work the way we hoped it would work, making the school addition about 2,000 square foot lighter, getting all new music facilities in the building, grabbing that music space and turning it into an expanded cafeteria, and then going into some other things that I'll talk about in a minute. But I think this feels good. It feels like it fits the building. It feels like it fits the language of the building. And I think we can make it look architecturally from the outside like it was always intended to be part of this campus. That's a hope. We'll see how that goes. So I mentioned music. We've captured a much larger instrumental music space. We've created a large vocal music space, some larger storage spaces, and even some practice rooms. Because all 4 schools, the students told me one of the things that bothers them is their sectional music practice out in the hallway. Because you break down into trumpets, trombones, winds, and there's no place to do that in a single music rehearsal room. So it happens all over the building. So we're going to create some things we might label funny for the School Facilities Commission, but for the most part they are intended to be places where you can break down into small sections of practice. We've kept the modular tech and the computer lab and the teacher's lounge all intact. We've extended this hallway through into our new, and our new consists of, again, 5 science labs and 6 new regular classrooms, and large group restrooms and staff restrooms at the point in the building where they're the furthest from. So it's a nice sort of balance. Getting around where you want to be, having multiple ways to get somewhere in the building, always being closer to the core than the most remote place in the building. That's a good thing. Down in the old science wing, we're going to recapture rooms that are odd-shaped and weirdly equipped with casework, grab those support rooms for things like conference rooms and special needs restrooms, and then creating special needs rooms and some quiet rooms and timeout rooms. All that works because we have the square footage in the old science wing to accomplish that. Something else that's a big hit with the students today is we have an oversized media center. Not that it's a bad thing, but in the idea of finding and creating more space, one of the things that are missing from this school from the standpoint of a typical middle school for 675 kids is these small group breakout rooms. And so using the media center as a place to locate those, because they can be monitored and sort of outfitted by the kids, how they use the media center and how they are supervised in the media center. When you see public libraries today, almost all the newest ones, this is the new Grove City Public Library, have these breakout rooms along the side. What I found remarkable when I'm there during the day is they're full of students. The minute school is out, kids rush to the library and do their small group work in these rooms in a public building because they don't have them at their school. And in the early afternoon, they're middle school kids, and in the later evening, they're high school kids. And during the day, they're adults. So it's quite a popular space. It makes sense to have it part of the media center because of the control and supervision. It makes sense to have it part of a public library. And so we're hoping that capturing 4 of these really does sort of add to the place where full-size classrooms aren't being used for small group breakout. And then we talked about the secure entry. We're going to take one of the classrooms. We're going to literally create a new entrance that's in the secure corridor. So these will electronically lock when school starts. Visitors will be allowed in this door, and they will be buzzed in visually by a person greeting them in a new entry space. So they will not have to, now this school is pretty close, they have to make a trek across the hallway, but there's no chance of people missing the hallway or intentionally trying to miss the hallway or miss the office. This is a secure entry that allows for a professional greeter and allows for some expansion in terms of all the things that are happening in the administration part of the building. And then our cafeteria and stage become a much larger cafeteria. At the simplest, the most cost-effective, we just take out some of the separation. We have 2 levels of cafeteria. We are asking our construction manager to determine what it would take to actually get rid of all this elevation change, to actually dig out the stage and have a big open 1-floor level cafeteria. It does allow us to pick up some ramp space and grow the cafeteria even more, but it might be cost prohibitive because it's not a small thing structurally to come inside this building and make all that demolition happen. But we could go, anywhere from like a 4,200 square foot cafeteria to almost a 5,000 square foot cafeteria, depending on what we decide we can afford and make happen. So it's an opportunity that we're still investigating, but it's a big piece of the solution here, because we are literally doubling the size of this room from the standpoint of its use. So the one piece that you've probably all seen and probably all scratched your head like I did is, what are we leaving inside a new built courtyard that's being formed by these 2 wings of the school? We have to have all this daylight. Classrooms without daylight aren't possible anymore. We want it to be secure. We want to have our looped corridor, so there's no way to get around this kind of design solution without creating a large courtyard. For the most part, everyone I've talked to, staff and students, have seen it as an opportunity. They think the idea of having a courtyard as an additional outdoor learning space is something. For the most part, schools, they don't want to push lawnmowers through hallways. They don't want to deal with overgrown grass or weeds or bushes or mulch. They want to see it, something that's low maintenance. But I think it should be not only not maintained by the custodial staff, it should be something that's very much a student and staff-driven learning space. And so it's big, it's odd-shaped, but it presents opportunities to have sort of zones that different activities could be happening in here. We have done a lot of outdoor learning spaces lately. It's become one of the more fashionable trends in terms of when students are breaking out of non-traditional what they call egg crate classrooms. They're looking for small group rooms, they're looking for large rooms, but they're also looking for different environments. And I know our school year isn't filled with days like this, per se, but there are times in the fall and the spring that this is a great opportunity for kids to get outside, to be in a secure area where they're not being concerned about traffic to Granby or traffic for buses or traffic across the street at the high school. This is a place they could always go, that could always be part of their day. I understand the middle school students from a couple of schools, have their lunch period, but then they have this free period where there's a few places in the building and a few places outside they can go. This would make a great extension of that. So I can see it as a learning space, but I can also see it as a sort of a student break space that would go along with their day. Again, lots of daylight can come into the school from these kinds of spaces, but they can be very inviting in terms of getting kids out of the building as well. And I've seen schools, again, when they really embrace it, turn them into botany experiments, turning into weather stations, turning them into science lab, outdoor lab, land labs, all those kinds of opportunities. And they're out there as examples to see and learn from. So that's where we are. It isn't to say that this is probably the most recent change to any of the 4 middle school designs. We are, I believe, at the square footage and at the 675 student capacity we want to be at. And in fact, this was one of the 4 buildings that probably wasn't being built to its sort of maximum potential, its maximum capacity. The other 3 middle school sites are going to be virtually filled when we finish those projects. And there's not going to be future opportunity. I think now we've done that here. So we really do, we are putting a pin in 4 middle school development projects because I think they're all kind of being built to their maximum potential. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to think of these buildings getting 10 classroom additions in the future. It would make sense to see middle school capacity be expanded by a new site or a new location. So I think it's great that the district is really embracing all 4 sites, building them to their capacity, and saying this is our opportunity of this generation to make these middle schools as big as and as capacity driven as they can be. So, questions? What are we missing? What we haven't thought about? Yes?
This might not be the right time for the question, but
Anytime.
has there been exploration of, with the addition of 6th grade, will there be physical areas where 6th grade will be housed, or will they be fully integrated?
That's a great question. And what I want to say as an architect is I hope I don't make that happen. I hope I don't make one of those decisions for you. If you want to isolate 6th graders, I hope you could do that without me building a 6th grade wing. If you want to integrate 6th graders, I hope I don't create any problem. In fact, the students today said, can we have a science hallway, a math hallway, a social studies hallway, and an English hallway? They didn't care if it was 6th through 8th. They thought of it more subject driven. We have kind of created a science hallway because we put the science rooms in a special place. Other than that, because it's a loop, I don't think it matters if 3 classrooms are math and the next 4 are English, or they're mixed and they're interdisciplinary. I just hope that as an architect, I don't cause future principals and future teachers to say, you know, damn architect made us do the building this way. I hope they can do it any way they want. So I hope that this does both things very well.
You had mentioned that it sounded like you'd gotten some teacher feedback on the shape of the rooms, because that was the first thing I noticed from the early plan, which was very squared off.
Right.
Not considering the north-south facing windows and all that kind of stuff. But those odd shapes, at least in most buildings I see, end up being dead space.
Right.
Or wasted space. So that's my biggest concern about, because when we did one of the earliest meetings, the complaint was about that southern wing, the science wing, down at the bottom, that's not a special needs area, was about the odd shape.
Awful shape.
I remember that being called out by
Right.
the teachers.
And here, when a classroom tries to be all things, it typically fails. When it finally gives up and says, we have to make some assumptions, it starts to work. I think square classrooms, square even, not even rectangular, but square, are the most flexible. But you still have to pick a teaching wall, because you still have to put the Clever Touch giant monitor somewhere now. You still have to put the teacher's computer and the phone jack somewhere. You could put phone jacks on all 4 walls, but now you're really overdoing it to be flexible. So I think once we decide that there's a teaching wall and there's a casework layout and there's window orientation and there's daylighting, and we figure out how it works, we ought to commit to a reasonable interpretation that lasts. Not to say that teachers won't change that over time. But I think the long, sort of the home plate, the back of the home plate classrooms, that makes a great teaching wall. It makes the widest space. It puts kids closer to the front wall than if they were in a square classroom. The question about the science lab is, which is the teaching wall? Is it the inside wall? Is it the outside wall? Is it the angled wall? You know, I don't know that yet. We have to get into these department meetings and talk about casework and layouts. The reason these science labs are such bad layouts is not just because of the shapes. It's that the operable walls that are there for flexibility mean the casework got put 4 feet off the wall, and now you've got these hallways around the outside of the casework, but you got no space in the classroom because everything was driven by the flexibility of these walls that could open. And if you open them, you got a giant space, but when you close them, you have all this wasted space because you couldn't put anything up against the wall. So it's a great question, and I don't have an answer. And in fact, the first thing that these guys asked me, the first things the student asked me, the first things I asked the teachers are these shapes hard to use? And I didn't get an overwhelming sense of negative. I got, it really depends on how you lay it out. And again, for the science labs, it's definitely a casework issue. For these classrooms, they're using them pretty well. But it has to be answered before we go forward.
I don't think somebody just, if you look at our math classrooms right now, and most of our math classrooms are grouping kids in groups of 4, so it doesn't matter the shape of the room at all. I mean, they're setting up their groups that way. Our science will be our science, you know, kind of with the 60-inch science tables, so they set up a certain way. So I don't think that shape, and then there's a lot of change day to day depending on what they're doing in language arts or social studies. So I don't see the limitation of the current shape of the classrooms. We haven't watched it for 16 years, and it's not, everybody there said, hey, I need a different classroom because of the shape. You know, they need more room, we need more rooms.
You know, we may go out to lay out casework and we may scratch our heads and say, we missed it, we gotta fix it, because, you know, with the window wall here and a teaching wall there, where's the sinks go? Do the sinks go on this wall by the door? Do the sinks go on the opposite wall? We're gonna have to figure all that out. So we're not there. That's what schematic design and design development's about. But the space is there. 900 square foot classrooms and 1,150, 60 square foot classrooms. That's gonna be pretty nice to lay out. It's gonna be, and this building has bigger than average classrooms. They are odd shaped. So I'm not sure if teachers notice they're bigger than average, whether the bigger than average is what makes them okay because they're odd shaped. Yes?
I think that things look really great. I know you worked hard on this. I do have a question maybe back to the 6th grade thing, and it probably isn't maybe directed more to you, but like when will some decisions be made? Because obviously I'm coming from the standpoint I have a child who's going to be in 6th grade, so I'm concerned. So just kind of wondering, when will those decisions be made? Because I do think that when those decisions are made, while there are lots of great options, I do think it could also impact some of the
Right.
design. So I kind of was wondering where we're at on that.
This school, I think, could go either way. I think there's other schools, like Worthing Way, that we're gonna be really hard pressed to break kids up into age groups because of the way
Yeah.
the building has to lay out. This one with its big circular, I think we could have a sixth grade row of classroom, or we could end up having departmentals or complete randomness. This building gives you lots of flexibility. It's got three double loaded quarters to do that. But the question, I don't know if Michael or Trent or
Yeah, so
Ethan.
Sam, we have a team that's working on master schedule design, right? And so they're really digging into what should a 6th through 8th grade middle school look like? What should it offer? How should a day flow? They're meeting currently and will meet into the fall. And by mid to late fall, we'll have a decision on what that master schedule look like. That's what drives our course offerings, those types of things. I don't see a scenario where 6th grade runs on a totally separate schedule from 7th and 8th grade. I think there'll be some sort of integrated module. Now, does that mean that they'll eat lunch at the same time or different times? That's more master schedule driven, and that will go through that process. But we aren't going to run a separate 6th grade one place and then a 7th and 8th grade middle school. It will be a 6th, 7th, 8th grade middle school concept. Exactly where classrooms are, that kind of stuff. To
My home district had tracks, so my kids were to get the track. And for a while, they decided to put them in some remote corner of the building and call it kind of a held-out place. My kids hated that because they weren't part of this bigger social sort of experience of the building. They hated it when they were 6th graders, and they hated it when they were 8th graders. And so they got away from that, and they sort of mainstreamed the use of the building in departmental areas, fine arts, science, math, English, humanities, those kind of things. And I think it was better. Because I think the opportunities to intermix have as many strengths and positives as they do negatives. And so it's a long question and a good debate.
Yeah, I agree. No, I most definitely agree. I just think mentally and socially and emotionally, that is a big concern for me. So, yeah.
Although I think the middle school band,
Yeah.
6-8, has become very, very common across Ohio because of the good things.
But I get being part of a community, most definitely, like that definitely makes sense.
And student dining is set up to take a third of the building, so it does break down if all 6th grade goes to lunch at the same time. So we have to make these large enough to accommodate a third of the students. So
That's
it
the design
could
standard.
set up 6, 7, 8 if that's how they want.
Right.
Yeah, so didn't mean to be clear, like, I'm not saying they're always going to be integrated at all times or anything like that. Like, how that happens will kind of be through the schedule design. But what we're not going to do is run a 7th and 8th grade schedule and a 6th grade schedule. Like, it may be that there's a 6th grade schedule, a 7th grade schedule, 8th grade schedule, but maybe it was confusing the issue.
Right. But it's a great conversation to spark because it's a lot of talk that needs to take place. Yes,
So
sir.
additional students, where will, are you changing the locker situation, or where are you adding the additional lockers?
It's a great question. We talked about it today. The hallways here simply won't take lockers. They're too narrow. I can't fix that without really sort of gutting the construction of the hallways. We have 2 locker bays. They're busy and they're crowded, and so they are fraught with opportunity for bad things to happen. Although the kids today said they like the fact that their locker is always toward the front of the building on their way out of school or on their way into school, and they can get their stuff and get on the bus. They don't care that it's kind of crazy. I said, we've got 2/3 of the school population covered by 2 locker bays. Should we put a 3rd locker bay in, or should we run lockers down the corridor of the addition? Because it can be any width we want. We can make it wide enough to put lockers in the corridor. They said they don't mind lockers in the corridor, but they would mind having their locker this far from the front of the school. And they think that we should take space near one of the 2 locker bays and make a 3rd locker bay. That was their call today. I'm not saying it was right, but I just wondered what their sense of what they do every day in terms of their use of their locker was. I kind of see that. I can see us taking maybe this end of the admin wing and making it a locker bay and refarkling some of the admin space. Kids talk about taking the art room, although I love where the art room is, and that it's perfect size for the state standard. But it could be the answer at the end. But and this space here is also space that used to be music storage. The school needs that storage. It doesn't have to be music storage anymore, but maybe it's an expanded locker bay so that they're in a kind of a triangular shape there, and that additional storage space is captured somewhere else in the building as well.
Is there some, at the top part of the courtyard, is there any specific reason the art room could be turned and moved into that?
Or can part of the courtyard become
Yeah, that's
enclosed
what I
and
mean.
become locker bay? Right. So all those
Yeah.
questions are good ones, and I will say that is the least resolved at this point. What is the solution for the 200 additional lockers? And it is going to be, hallway or third locker bay, and where that happens is really up to how the technical engineering part of this goes forward from here.
And we really don't need 200 additional lockers. We
Probably
have, like, at the end of this summer, we'll have 644.
Oh, you will?
So we're 642. We have 598 lockers now. We're adding 44 new ones this summer to deal with the increase in student
So you're
population
already
coming. So
pushing that number up.
we're pushing kind of the total that we'll need. And one of the things that we do so that we don't have all 600 kids at their locker at the same time, kids come in at different times because of their buses in the morning. So it's not a big issue in the morning where it's the biggest issue, and they're there at various times during the day. The biggest issue is the end of the day. So at the end of the day, one semester, we'll let, out of advisory, at the end of the day, we'll let 8th grade out 5 minutes before 7th grade. So they're there, they go to their locker, they're gone, and then we'll let out 7th grade, and then we flip it at semester so the kids feel that fairness that they get out 5 minutes early. And it's worked really well for us. For the most part, we are able to separate our boys from our girls, except for in the front where you come in, there's 332 lockers, plus we're adding another 44. There's only 266 in the back, so it's not an even split. So there are times when we look at total number of kids, what we did for years is whoever we had more of, we put up front. So if we have more boys than girls, the boys are up front, or vice versa. And now what we do is we just keep a full bay as an overflow bay if we need more of those up front. And we've done that for about 3 years. It seems to work really well.
So principal's preference would be just to sort of expand the locker bay areas in that core of the building somehow?
Because the way we do it too now is it's 8th grade has their locker on top, 7th grade on bottom. So we didn't want to have the same grade level out there and the kid taking the locker to the head as they're bent down getting their stuff. So that's the reason for going 7th and 8th and splitting them up.
Yeah, boots in the field practice is always the best test. So interesting, that's one of the least resolved things about this scheme, and it's really important. What else? Great comments, go ahead.
Is there any need with the additional students to expand the athletic locker rooms?
They are okay. The state design manual says your gym is exactly the right size. You actually have more space in locker rooms than the state manual sort of dictates. I will say the state manual is least generous when it comes to athletic support space. The gym space is the gym space, and it's just right. The Kilbourne gym and McCord gym are the ones that are exactly right. We're growing space at the other two, but these are exactly right. The locker room space, kids told me today they found out at the end of their 8th grade year that there's actually showers in the locker rooms. They didn't even know. And I know the ones at Kilbourne are turned off. So I'm not sure that showers are important to middle schoolers. They weren't important to me in middle school. But I think we have enough space. The question is, do we need to go into those locker rooms and reuse that space a little, capture maybe showers for some more storage space, or create additional locker space, or whatever it is. I know that middle school gyms don't have lockers that serve football equipment or larger sport support, but we have to come up with ways that that's done, and I know every school's doing it somehow. This school has some space, a little bit of bonus space in the north wing in this additional room up here.
I'm sure I'll jinx myself in saying this, but in 16 years as principal here, we've never had a middle school kid want to take a shower.
Yeah.
And the water's turned off and it's storage right now.
But one of the kids said, I'm so surprised if I have their showers here.
The question with athletics, though, even though we're adding 6th grade still won't compete for our school. So we're not adding kids that are going to compete for McCord athletics. We're adding 6th grade, which will still continue to do WIB sports.
Right. And you do PE with more kids.
Yes.
But This is a pretty good school, and Kilbourne, has the lower level locker rooms. It's also pretty good. They're both, again, the smaller two middle schools, but they have the better athletic wings. Yeah.
Has there been any discussion about the updating the current outdoor space? Like
Jeff,
the
are we putting
basketball
modulars
space?
there in the interim to deal with space problems, do you think? Because the kids talked about that today. It was surprising. They felt like they were so landlocked here. And I know the picnic tables and the outdoor space are really in that. I don't have a good picture of it. Let me go back to the photograph. So yeah, they come out here and hang out. They're allowed out here, but they're not allowed across the parking lot to the field or anything. They're not allowed out here. So this is the outdoor space right now for the school. I think in the end, it'll all be back. It'll be there. But in the interim, I think there's growing pains at Granby and here that are going to need some locations for some temporary classrooms. Eventually, again, I think we'll have this kind of cool outdoor courtyard space for at least during the day kind of activities for the kids. But we came up today about whether we put basketball courts in the courtyard or whether we keep them out here. What do we do with all this space? The cross-country runners know about it, but a lot of other people don't. So there's some opportunities here to see what we can do with outdoor amenities, but we do have this sort of imaginary do not cross line because of traffic. Yeah.
What is sorry, I don't already know this, but what is the school year when this will be new?
Fall of 21, we hope all 4 schools are online and functioning as their
So when
long-term.
the 6th grade comes in, it will be.
Right.
also-
Correct. That's the idea. And this one should be easy. It's a single addition in a direction. It's not going to be very disruptive. It's a site that has room for it. I don't think this is the challenge. I think Worthing Way is our challenge because it's a very crowded site with lots of additions and lots of sides and directions. But this one should be fairly logistically possible. Save the idea of maybe losing some basketball courts for some temporary classrooms. It's good stuff. You're thinking about the right things. You might be thinking about second period of the Blue Jackets game too.
Okay, so the way this kind of works is there were feedback sheets out on the table. If you want to give us written feedback, we would love to take it tonight. If you want to go home and email us feedback, I'm at tbowers@wscloud.org, and so you can do that at any time in the next week or so if you're just thinking this through. I will take that feedback that you send me, get it to Tony and Mike, because they're the ones that will really utilize that feedback. If you said something here tonight from a feedback standpoint, Tony's been taking notes. So we did capture some of those questions that you had or some of the feedback pieces that you had. And then this video, if you have friends that were saying, hey, I wanted to be here, but I couldn't be here, I didn't get to see the plans, video should be online tomorrow. And it's at our master facility planning page, which is right on the front page of the website. I think it's the first news item right now where it's in that piece. And so you can also check out the videos from our Perry Phoenix meeting, from our Worthing Way meeting, from our Kilbourne Middle meeting. They all star this guy. So he's the star of those shows for each of them, but Worthing Way should be up, or McCord should be up there sometime tomorrow, more than likely. So if somebody wants to give us feedback, couldn't come tonight, wants to email us that feedback, encourage them to do so. Because the more people that provide feedback, the better off we are.